with our names or the actual show first?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Okay. Hi, I'm Janae.
I'm Lisa.
And we're the QC Chicks.
Also known as Quality Control Chicks. We went through this last time. It's consistent.
I knew I was going to do it again.
That's okay. It'll be a running joke. It'll be great.
Yeah, just we'll make it a thing. That'll be part of the intro.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're the QC Chicks, or the Quality Control Chicks.
Yes.
And we like to talk about all kinds of fun QC errors in TV and movies. Mm-hmm. And today we are going to be talking about production mistakes.
Yes, that's anything from boom mics, equipment, crew members, anything left on set that ended up in camera. Similar to post-production mistakes, except these would have been introduced on set and would have carried through. That wouldn't have been something anyone would have been looking for to fix necessarily in post-production. Mm-hmm. And everything originated on set.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff we're going to be going over. I did want to touch on a couple things from the last episode because I've finished editing and putting it all together for now. Yes. First thing I want to address, and I did put text in the edit, but for those of you who haven't watched or are only listening and not looking at the visuals, that made sense. Wednesday did fix their post mistakes.
Yes, you did tell me that.
Mm-hmm. I went back on my phone. I haven't done like a proper PS5 full TV watch back, but I did check. I didn't see the flash frame. That was the first one I looked for. I couldn't remember what scene it was in. So
yeah, someone definitely flagged that to them and they removed it. It's a very easy thing to remove. It's not going to change too much. So you said they also removed everything with her face as well that we had noticed.
Yep, at least per the visual screen grabs that I cut into the last episode and what I remember it looking like, it was a lot cleaner on her face predominantly, but also Catherine Zeta-Jones's chest. They just, I think, removed everything that was there too. It looks very natural now.
Interesting. So it makes you think, like, did someone say something? Was it like the power of social media to come in and play and just be like, we don't really like that. And with enough people, then, they tend to go back and fix things.
Yeah, I don't know, because I wasn't really hearing any discourse about it when the show actually came out. Like, I heard it a lot in our friend group because we noticed it and we were all talking about it. The other thing I wanted to bring up quickly, because I've been waiting for us to record this second episode to bring it up to you. We saw Twisters in D-Box.
Yes.
So good. I'm a huge fan of the original. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And I was a little skeptical about a sequel because I was like, you don't really need to. Like, the first one was such a perfect standalone. Everything about it was just so, like, singular. You didn't need to expand on it. And they did in a decent way. It didn't feel too contrived. They got, like, a lot of credible people to act in it, produce, direct, all that stuff. Anyway, I could go on about how good the movie was forever.
This one, still got to see it.
I highly recommend. It's actually on digital now, so you can probably find it online.
I'm going to.
But that being said, and this isn't even a filmmaking thing, this is a theater gripe. There was a dead pixel or a cluster, because it's a big screen, on the screen when we were watching it.
Oh my gosh. That's a bad one then.
Yeah, so we saw it in Ultra AVX because that's the, I think, only theater at that location that had the D-Box. And the D-Box, I don't know why I thought they were like way in the back. They're like in the middle between the front and the main row of seats. And so you're like pretty close to the screen, but it's Ultra AVX, so it's a bigger screen.
Yeah.
And it was in like the far right corner, and there was a conversation that I think it was the first time Daisy Edgar-Jones and Glenn Powell's characters talked to each other. So they're having some kind of back and forth about the weather, and she's being all like, hee, I'm going to tell you the wrong way to go, even though I know it's the right way. And I just, like, I was getting distracted by something, and I kept looking, and it's just this big blue shiny cluster of dead pixels. And it had to have been the monitor or the screen or whatever, because it was the whole movie. But I only noticed it starting in that scene.
The whole movie.
Yeah.
The whole movie. Wow.
I don't know how that happens on a projection screen, or maybe it's like some different form of dead pixel. I don't know, but I don't think it was just on the camera coverage. Like, I think it was on the theater side.
So they've got to do, they have to do tests. I mean, when you send out for deliverables for things like that, which we have done, you have to, like, you definitely have to check for how the deliverable plays. And then even once it gets to the theater. I'm sure they do their own tests there.
They must, yeah.
Definitely
but I mean,
something to look into.
Because I don't know what would have even played before that or what's probably playing there now. But yeah, no, it was super distracting. And I was like, I have to wait to bring it up when we record the podcast. I don't want to tell her about it beforehand because
now I gotta see it. And then I'll watch it when I rent it, and then I'll let you know if I've seen anything. But I can imagine it's probably just something that's to do with the projector and not necessarily the actual final film.
Yeah, I mean, I want to watch it again, so I'm definitely going to watch the digital version as well. I mean, I'm a sucker for hard copies, so the second that's out on Blu-ray, I want to get it on Blu-ray too. But because I have the first one at VHS, which I know is not Blu-ray, and I know it's rezzed up for the streaming services that it's on, but there's something cool about watching the original VHS that you'll never get because they don't make them anymore. So
yeah, you're definitely a VHS nerd.
I am. And you know what? Fun fact, Twister was the first movie to be put on DVD from VHS.
Oh.
It was the first movie to do the trade over, at least according to the internet. Who knows? I was probably 4 when the movie came out, so
it's a good thing to bring up because, again, it's like we're going to probably get into talking about how things can get noticed after, and once it's out there, you can fix it and you can re-upload it to whatever streaming site, or you can have, sometimes movies go back for theater re-releases, things like that. So things you might have noticed could suddenly not be there anymore, which is something we will get to talk about. Because this one, we're going to talk about production mistakes. So it can be anything from like things being left in frame to something that just the team, while they were filming, they just were so busy and got caught up in everything that they just missed things. And it happens all the time. We actually both went to school for film and media. And so we had to do a lot of student films. And yeah, we experienced that a lot, like with our own student films. You're filming things, you go back to look and you're like, oh, yep, that mic pack is totally in frame. It's not good.
Nope, you learn very early on how easy it is to leave things in this view of the camera because you have, especially in your first year of college, like you don't really have like a full what they call video village, which is where you have like a whole basically village of people like watching for certain things, or you have the script super watching for continuity, the DOP's watching for everything they've set up to be going smoothly. So there's a monitor set up for even the director to watch. But like if you're not having that, especially the monitor set up, you're relying on only the person who's been staring through this camera lens all day to be watching for this stuff. And you're going to miss things like, especially like mic packs and mics in frame and all that kind of stuff. You're focused on one thing. And
you're just so focused on the action. And, that especially like, because we both had our hand in being the director. And
I hated it. Halfway through the day, I pulled, like Jack was on set, that I pulled him aside. I was like, I don't want to be doing this anymore, but I have to keep going. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm a post person. I'm not about this life.
It's hard. It's like there's so many compartments to it and so many things running through your head and chaos. Everybody's their own job and you're just hoping everybody's doing their job. And one of them specifically is a script super who is going to follow the script, make sure that everything is on track for, their lines and stuff like that. But then they also should be looking for continuity.
Yes, and that's a big one. And that's the other thing that plays into production mistakes. Not necessarily just stuff being left in frame, but because, especially with movies, more so than TV, although you could argue shows that are more cinematic, like Game of Thrones, or the only other one coming to my mind is House of the Dragon, which is also Game of Thrones, like Fallout, The Last of Us.
Yep.
The Boys, like bigger, more cinematic shows are going to be shot more like a film. So they're going to have a lot more coverage, which is getting as many camera angles as possible of the scene that you're shooting so that you have a lot to work with and post, a lot to cut with, or a lot of options for, VFX shots if you need to get a certain angle to make a VFX shot work better, something like that. And so you really have to pay attention to really everything, and especially on a show like I'll just come back to The Boys really quickly, where there's lots of blood being splattered on the characters constantly. That has to match up in the close-up, in the wide shot, in the reverse shot. And you'll have script super,
yeah.
looking for those kinds of things on set, sort of say like, okay, there was some blood on the person's face and on their shirt, so let's swap out the shirt so that we have more blood because there was more blood in this take, and you have to have. And then when they put their cup down afterwards, it was on this side. They used this hand. Like, you have to, there's so much to keep track of.
It's a lot to keep track of.
For one person, usually.
It is.
Every department, but one person specifically.
So, like, I worked, after we were done film school, I worked on set in the art department. And, you know, I worked doing, like, set dressing a lot of the time. But every once in a while, I got to go into the world of props, which was really, really cool. We basically would have to do that. We'd have to say, okay, so this scene requires this coffee mug or, you know, this ring or whatever, like whatever was needed for the scene. We'd bring in, and we'd have to make sure that everything was like perfectly in place as it was when we started the shot. And you have to like put everything back exactly the way it is. And you'll have someone yelling at you being like, no, that's not right. Like, you need to fix that. And you run back in and you have to rearrange it. And it was hard. And admittedly, like, there were times where I like was sitting there behind camera, like when they were running, I was like, shoot, that was not perfect. I did not put that exactly back the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's nerve-wracking, and it happens because it's chaotic. You have a lot of things going on. And so it's like, I understand why these mistakes happen.
I think that's a good thing about having come from film school, where you learn, at least, like, I mean, we didn't ironically learn about set deck. We had to figure that out on our own. But you learn about all these facets of filmmaking. So you, at least to a certain degree, even like, you know, again, while watching stuff and appreciating things, but also working on things now being in the industry, it helps so much to understand at least a little bit what every other department is doing, or maybe even just at least going through on set or in post-production. Like, I'm mindful of that when I'm setting up projects down the line. It's like, okay, well, hopefully this editor is better at organizing their audio. So when I pass it off to the audio team, they're not getting stuff that they're like flummoxed by and having to do so much correction for, because I know that's a pain in the ass and they're going to only have so much time. And so you have that kind of thing on set too, where like art department understands what camera's doing, camera understands what art department's doing, and everyone kind of has to work together.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to mention too about continuity, we touched a bit on it in our last episode too, is reshoots.
Yep.
Because sometimes it's not even just the same day or the same week that you're filming something. You have to keep stuff in mind. Sometimes you have to remember months and months, sometimes years later, exactly how short someone's hair was, or if they did or didn't have a mustache that you had to remove in post.
Yeah. It's a whole game for people to figure out, oh, look, like the whatever it was, her hair was on that side in that shot, and now it's on the other side or something. People just love like pointing out things like that. Sometimes it can be, you know, not as noticeable to the viewer. And then there are other times where it's like, how did you not see that? How did you not notice? And that's more what we'll be talking about.
Yes. More obvious examples, because it's easier for us to talk about and easier for people to go actually look for after hearing us talk about them.
Yeah. So one that I like really, really noticed and this was a long time ago when I was like really into film student, you know. A big one was in The Wizard of Oz, which I'm sure a lot of people have noticed. And it is an older movie, so it can be forgiven a little bit.
There's some like remastered versions now too that may or may not still have some issues from the previous version. And I just say that because I don't know for sure. So
yeah, well, I recently rewatched it, and I noticed this again, and it was that there's a scene where like her hair is just, it's a lot shorter, and then suddenly, very, very suddenly, it's like way down to here.
Oh.
It goes from like short, like little pigtails to just so much longer. And within the same scene, during the song If I Only Had a Brain with the Scarecrow, and they're doing the, you know, the singing and this and that, and there's a shot where like her hair is pretty much the way it is for most of the movie, and then it's just so much longer. And the reason for that is because they actually like had to do a bunch of reshoots like way later. So it was like, I think they said it was 6 months later they came back to film it and, you know, add more into it. And her hair was so much longer.
Oh, no.
And it's just such a difference. And the reason it's such a difference is because it's so like from this shot to this shot, it's just, okay, her hair grew like.
Yeah, several, like 6 months worth of
6
inches.
months of hair. So it was a bit like, okay, who didn't notice that? When you're in like makeup and hair, they usually will take a photo of you to make sure, okay, if we do have to do reshoots, how did everything look? Let's make sure we make it all look the same. So it's interesting that someone missed that.
Yeah, because I wonder if even back then, because it would have been all on film, and our film training is definitely heavily digitally based, not so much actual like film reels. So I wonder how hard it would have been to even just like pull up part of what they already shot.
Oh yeah, I don't even know if they would like. They probably could have, but yeah, so that was one that I noticed because I recently rewatched it and I was like, oh. There's some other things in that movie too that people have like flagged. Oh, did you see that in the background?
Did you see the munchkin?
Oh my gosh.
That's a whole other episode. And we could do just episodes full of just like movie trivia, but there's already so many podcasts out there about that. I feel like we wouldn't be saying anything new.
Yeah.
Except for our own opinions, but.
Yeah, exactly. Ours are more like, you know, things that we see as mistakes or that others would see as mistakes. And then, yeah, whether or not they deal with them, which...
If there's still mistakes, nobody did, clearly. Well, I guess after the fact, if they deal with them, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's also like, you know, there's some that it almost becomes like a cult thing, too, where it's like, oh, you know what? People notice that, and they almost like embrace it, and they're just like, well, we don't care. It's almost part of the joke. Like in Mean Girls, literally, there's a scene where, you know, Katie comes in with her howling getup, and she scares Janice and Damien on the couch. And he's got like this giant bowl of popcorn. And he literally he throws the whole thing. All the popcorn goes everywhere. And then the next shot, the popcorn bowl is full. So and everybody pointed that out. It was a huge, huge continuity mistake. But they didn't care. They're like,
too bad.
Why would we recut that scene? It's actually kind of funny. Like,
it's too bad they can't like do something with that on the stage play, or maybe they just like could have someone jokingly come on stage and swap it out for a full bowl and never address it.
You know, I just watched the theater show too, and I was like waiting to see if they would do that, but no, they didn't do the gag. It would have been a great idea, though.
It would have been. I'll direct the next one.
Oh, there you go. The stage show or the movie?
Whichever. Whichever one's easier to insert that gag into, probably a movie.
Yeah.
Or it'd be funnier on stage because someone would just run in with a full bowl of popcorn and nobody acknowledges them, and then they just keep going with the scene.
I feel like there's been jokes where people are like, oh, like, you know, she throws water or whatever, and then the glass isn't even or it doesn't even empty. It's just like still full with water, which is like another thing for props. Like sometimes you'll have just like prop glasses, which I've dealt with both sides of it, where it's like you had to fill it with something non-alcoholic to make it look like alcohol. But then there's also glasses that are literally just like, they look like there's liquid in them and the actor can't drink it. It's funny because food and props, like,
the worst for continuity.
The worst for continuity. It can be a struggle. Like I myself have dealt with, like, I was on a scene once and it was like literally like a plate of spaghetti that we had to like dress, make look all nice. And as the actor's like poking into it during the scene, it's like getting all messed up. Every single take, we had to go in, wipe the plate, put it all nice again so that it would look the same. Otherwise, you know, if you start the scene and it's just this really disgusting, messy plate, or if they've kind of eaten it or whatever, and it's getting smaller or lower, it's like, okay, as an editor is going to cut back and forth, you could have a very full plate of pasta and then an empty one, and that could be really problematic.
Yep.
So, yeah, food can be really troublesome, which is going to bring me to, actually, Pretty Woman. So do you know that one with Pretty Woman?
I've seen the movie, but it's been such a long time. I think you jogged my memory a little bit when you added this to the notes, but I hadn't had a chance to go back and look at the actual scene.
It's one that I think like a lot of people also have noticed. It's funny because it's a scene that's like pretty, you're supposed to be just focusing on her and talking. Like they're having like a conversation, and you know, that's probably why they didn't notice it. One moment she's eating a croissant and then she's eating a pancake. And, you know, you could make it work that like maybe she had a buffet and it was like a whole bunch of different foods and she's just, you know, casually eating it. That's fine. However, in the scene, the editing, they just cut from one shot and then they cut to the guy in response and then cut back to her and then she was suddenly eating a pancake. So it doesn't really work.
She's a magician.
Like,
who knew?
If she was double-handing, you know, breakfast foods, that'd be different.
I'd be double-fisting breakfast foods.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible. We've been there.
You just jogged my memory of, so I'm rewatching 30 Rock right now, and there's a scene in the later seasons, it's an episode we literally just watched it like last week, and Tina Fey's character, Liz Lemon, is talking to, I forget who, talking to somebody, and talking about baby toys, and now she wants to see this person's baby because she brought them a toy. She pulls it out of the bag and she's like, but I bought them this crinkle book. And then the rest of the scene is a stuffed giraffe. Like, but because they made such a point of, I'm guessing they didn't have coverage of her pulling this giraffe out of a bag, or they changed it because something happened. I don't know. You made such a point of building it up for a punchline and then it's a completely different toy and no one says anything.
Yeah, that sounds like something that show would do, though.
Oh, for sure.
Would, like, I mean, it is a show about, like, being on set.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
just...
You have Debbie Downer herself playing this, like, weird little blueberry person, like, in the first season. Like, it doesn't make sense all the time.
That's true.
But in terms of that one scene that's not supposed to have anything jarring happening, it's just like, look at this crinkle book. Look. And then it's a giraffe.
And then it's no longer in the scene.
Yeah. Made me think of the Pretty Woman thing where it's like a croissant and then it's a pancake.
And suddenly it's a pancake.
Yeah.
And it's like... It happens, but it's just funny. Like, generally, you would be like, okay, if you're eating this one thing, or this is the prop, this is the toy, okay, well, we're going to make sure it's in the scene. Like, the prop person or the, as we talked about, the script super is going to be like, okay, where the heck is that crinkle toy? Like, we need that here. So I've been kind of watching it here and there, and, like, it is really funny. And they do play a lot on, like, just what it's like to be on set and, like... all of that. Like, they fully poke fun
That's the one thing that I love about TV is when it's meta about itself, they always get stuff right. So for people in the industry, you'll get little in-jokes of, like, even just because it's a live show, it's like mimicking SNL. The whole show is based on Tina Fey's relationship with Lorne Michaels when she was working on SNL. So it's, you know, from ways that booms are set up or people's jobs on set or whatever, like they'll do little jokes here and there. And then like the average person might just think it's funny, but then someone in the industry will know like a little bit more why it's funny and be like, oh, you get it. You know. You know all the set stuff. I see what you did.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think I'm glad that I had like the experience of kind of seeing what it's like on set and post, because I do kind of see where things can go wrong, like what happens on both sides of it. Like, I get it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know why that production mistake can happen while you're filming. And then also same with, you know, when you're in post, it's like, unless you're like specifically looking for things like we do. Yeah. It's not, you know, you're just watching a scene for the dialogue, the speaking, the action.
For what's actually happening. You're not distracted by anything else.
And we talked a lot about continuity. And I think now we should definitely get to the other production mistakes you see often.
Yes, which is like, stuff in the frame that should not be in the frame.
That shouldn't be there. Yeah.
Yes. So we can start off by talking, I guess, about Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter movie. Those poor kids, first of all, having to sit on those broomsticks. Like, we thought it was so cool as a kid, and then you rewatch them now, and all I can think of is, oh my God, ow.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I need to go and buy a broom from Dollarama. And Harrison made a joke, and he was like, I was like, I don't want to have to walk all the way back with this broom. He's like, oh, well, you could just ride it. And I was like, That wouldn't be very comfortable. Really wouldn't.
Like, practically, though.
Like, it would be nice to just fly around, but
Yeah.
you know.
How did all the Salem witches do it? Were they getting yeast infections all the time? Like,
Just like crazy front wedgie, you know.
the least of their worries. Being a convicted witch might be worse, I guess. But in terms of Harry Potter,
Yeah.
I do know the actors had little seats that they would sit on, to make it more comfortable for, you know, the girls and the guys, because all bits hurt after sitting on something like that for a long time.
A long time, too, because, like, those Quidditch scenes were long, and, like, they probably were crazy shoot days.
Oh, I'm sure. They were probably at least a couple days, especially for the bigger ones. But yeah, it's just, I mean, we know they're there because I've seen like behind the scenes and stuff like that, but also we know they're there because we can see one in the first movie. We can see Daniel Radcliffe, who plays Harry Potter, sitting on his broomstick and his little seat like poking out around his Quidditch robes. Uniform.
Yeah.
I can't think of words today. Uniform, coffee pot. We're doing great.
Oh, I know. I'm not getting the words. But yeah, like it's, you know, the first movie was, I mean, it was an old movie. There were quite a few mistakes. And then also, you know, just the VFX of it wasn't the greatest.
They got better as the films went on, except for Grop in the fifth one. They just had no idea what they were doing with that. But
yeah, that's true.
You look back and you're like, you know what? Fluffy looked pretty real now that I think about it compared to Grop.
Yeah, you know? That is true. There were better design choices on that one.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, bad CG is a whole other episode we could get into.
But again, with this scene with, you know, Quidditch, it's like they have to try and make it so that you can't tell that they're just sitting on a mechanical broom.
With a little seat on it.
With a little seat. And yeah, it was very visible. And I think, you know, as a kid, I'm not sure I noticed it. I saw it a long time ago. Like for the first time, it was a long, long time ago. Obviously, we watch it later. We notice it. But yeah, I think it didn't take away from the magic for me. It was still like, you know, it's still like a magical film. I'm not sure
There's other things that can arguably take the magic away from that series. We won't focus on that. We'll focus on the seats, on the brooms.
Yeah.
But, and the thing, too, is, like, Quidditch is so fast-paced, and the good thing is because there's scenes where they're not playing Quidditch, where they're on broomsticks, too, and it's so fast.
I don't think I've ever, like, noticed it in any other scenes. I feel like it was mostly that one, and the first movie.
They learned how to probably hide it better in the next few. They got, you know, different creative teams, different directors behind, like, how they want it to look. They probably updated the actual models of brooms that they were sitting on and the way that they were filming it and everything. So
yeah,
I'd imagine they probably just, even if they didn't notice that it was even a thing in the first one, they were probably changing how they were doing it anyway. So
I'm trying to remember too, like, are they wearing their robes as they're riding the...
No, they're like Quidditch uniforms.
So it's just the uniform, right? Wearing, so there's not much to cover.
They've got like pants. And they're like cream-colored pants. Yeah. So
yeah, so I guess it just kind of pokes out from underneath, and it's like kind of a darker, like you can see that he's sitting on like a darker seat, which maybe they probably could have blended that a little bit better.
Probably could have, yeah. I mean, that one's a little more forgivable. The next example that we have here, and I probably will be looking at my notes a lot more for this one just because we have a lot of little examples for this episode. The movie Clue, you've seen it?
Yep.
So
I haven't recently though, so I'm gonna go back after this.
Okay, I want to rewatch it anyway. So there's a scene where Mrs. Peacock turns on the cellar lights, and you can see some lighting equipment visible in the shot, which I think you can really only get away with on, like I said, something like 30 Rock or something where there's something around that is visually supposed to be like a set or something.
Yeah, it makes sense for the environment for the scene.
But I mean, that one, I'd have to go back and look at it because I don't think I even noticed it when I was watching it. That's when I noticed when doing research.
Yeah, we're researching and found. It's funny too because yeah, like a scene like that, you probably wouldn't, it's, something's happening and it's like, oh gosh, and then you don't realize that it's in the corner. But
it's got to be something you notice on repeat watches, because that show already does so much. Like, they have, like, I'm pretty sure they play every version of the ending at the end. Like, every possible combination of who it could have been. So it's self-aware in that respect. So it can something like a comedic movie or a movie with comedic undertones can definitely get away with it more than, like, if this was Oppenheimer and you could see a lighting equipment in the background of one of the shots. Which I will say, that's a long-ass movie. I didn't notice anything, and I don't know if I'll be rewatching it, but it'd be hilarious if there is lighting equipment anywhere.
No, I didn't notice.
Probably not. This next one is kind of crew, but it's crew and equipment. So it's the movie, we talked about Twisters.
Yeah.
Not in a episode-based critical sense, more of like a theater experience, the weekly recap, if you will. But the original movie Twister, there's a scene where, I'm going to read this directly from this, otherwise I'm going to get this exact scene wrong. But Melissa dodges a truck and Dusty rushes to open a door to help Melissa get out of the truck. And you can see the reflection of the camera in the bottom right corner. And then as they move and pan right, you can see the reflection of the same camera and cameraman in the bottom right corner. Because that's something a lot I feel like gets overlooked is reflections.
Yeah, reflections are
hard.
People don't catch that. And, once you've got that on that big screen and you're in a movie theater, you're going to see it.
Yeah.
You're going to see it.
Cars, I feel like, are the worst because mirrors, you're already actively trying to film around.
Yeah, a mirror is pretty obviously, like, you can avoid.
But a reflection on cars, like, even in the few, I'll say I've worked on a couple horror TV shows and I've had to add a couple of VFX shots to some lists because those already have crazy VFX anyway because they're horror. So you're adding, like, smoke or you're adding, like, whole atmospheres sometimes, but then I'll tack on some VFX suggestions being like, hey, like, the actor's walking through this field and when he walks past the car, you can see the whole camera set up, like, in the reflection of the window, just based on how they were framing it and everything. And it happens, again, like we said last time, it happens at all scales of films, all scales of TV shows. No one's really immune to it because there's just, again, we talk about this a lot, the chaos of set and everything. It's so easy to miss things. But camera reflections on cars are like they're a big one. Yeah. It's always cars.
Yeah. I do look for it too. Like,
I always look for it.
If I'm watching a movie and I can tell the camera's going like right up close to something and like panning, I'm like, because we are filmmakers and we understand the filming process, we look for things like that. Someone can probably take themselves out and just actually be in the scene.
Yes.
And like not be like, oh, this is a scene being filmed by a full camera crew. But like we are looking for that and we're like, okay, how did they film this scene with all these, you can have a city street. Someone's going by on the city street and they're walking past windows, they're walking past cars, like all these things. And we're looking for this like giant crane holding the camera, like going by. And you're like, where is it? Where is it? I think I can see it in that like mirror on that car.
I think I see it.
Yeah. And it's someone has to go in and literally paint that all out.
Yeah.
If
you're lucky, it's just the corner of a shot. Sometimes it could be full frames, and hopefully those are the ones people don't end up seeing because they do get caught, and then you don't end up seeing them follow product. To move on a little bit to boom mics, which I'll quickly explain what those are before we start jumping into them. And I'm just getting a little confused again here because I have pictures moved around.
I know. We went backwards today.
Sorry, not that you would ever know if we didn't say anything. But boom mics are another thing. I feel like you see this a lot more in TV. It's pretty acceptable in reality TV because you understand that it's so run and gun. And so guerrilla style, which guerrilla style just basically means like, who cares? Just shoot it, get the footage. People won't really care. Yeah. As long as the focus of the scene is being filmed, it doesn't really matter. But for big movies, obviously it matters. And so a boom mic, I have experienced being a boom op. It's a very thankless job.
Yes. Lisa, who's super short, was a boom op.
If any of
Great pairing.
have seen the movie X, you might know what a boom op is. Jenna Ortega's character in that movie is a boom op. She's holding...
True, and she's short as well.
And she's also short. I swear to God, it's usually very tall people who should be and are boom ops. Although short people can do whatever they want. They can be whatever they want.
Yes. But you know,
you're holding a microphone.
The whole point is you need to be above the scene.
Yeah, but that's why there's pole extenders. Yeah. But you're holding a microphone, so actors will typically be laved up. The lav mics are little lavalier mics. You can see them on like late night shows. People put them on like guests' shirts and stuff like that, so you can get a really clean record. And so it's the job of the person on set to sort of hide it in the costuming and stuff like that. But there's also a boom mic that is meant to capture sort of like backup audio or general audio, and it's being held above the camera, and it's supposed to be out of frame. It's supposed to not be visible, but... You know, depending how long you shoot scenes, and having done it myself, how much coverage you get, if you don't have someone to swap
tired your arms are.
It's gonna dip in a frame sometimes, guys. It happens.
Yeah,
I've had it happen, and sometimes you don't know because it's so obvious when you have someone watching the screen to point out and say up a little bit, because you might feel like you're out of frame.
Yeah.
So you might be like, this is great. I'm on axis for both people, which means like you have a good, like, this is on access for us to record. Means it's getting a good angle. We're not too far from it. We're not like right up close to it. But you're welcome, Jack.
Thanks for that.
So there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind, but one of the ones that sort of slips a little bit, especially if the camera itself is moving, is you having to constantly maintain a consistent height or move if something is being panned or tilted.
You just have to have a judgment for it, and can be difficult. It can be difficult to know. You don't have a screen in front of you to tell. And I mean, there is someone's job to look at the screen
for sure,
and to notice
they're looking
those
for
things.
So many other things too, like everything else that we're pointing out ends up in films.
That's why it gets missed. It gets missed all the time.
Exactly.
It's something your focal point is in the middle of the screen. You're watching the action, the actors, and you're just trying to focus on making sure they get that. And then your script super is usually looking for continuity and making sure the lines are read properly and things like that. And then the ADs just make sure everything runs really smooth. And it gets missed. It's, it could just pop into just a little corner or just the very top. And on a little monitor, you can't really tell. But
no, especially if it's just like a little dip. And so we're going to mention some of those now and ruin these movies. The first one is Star Wars, which is a touchy subject, and I'm scared to even bring it up. But a boom mic is reflected in Luke's goggles in The Empire Strikes Back when he says, "Hey, what's the matter? You smell something?" Which is something I've never personally said. But apparently you can see a boom mic in his goggles in that scene. I've definitely seen The Empire Strikes Back. It's been a long time. Again, there's a lot of
Anytime I've watched it, it's like, well, I didn't go to theaters or anything to watch it, so
no.
I feel like you definitely would have seen it on a big screen for sure.
Probably. Those movies are so busy though, so I feel like diehard fans are probably the ones picking those out.
Yeah.
They're the ones who've seen it like 50 times and then they watch it again and they're like, I love this scene, and they're like really paying attention and they're like, what's in his goggles? Oh, it's a microphone.
Yeah.
And then it ends up online for everybody to point out.
Yeah. That would be one they could go back and fix. I'm actually curious. I feel like they probably haven't, though, because it's
again, well, maybe
movie.
George Lucas goes back and changes a lot adds whole CG characters to his movies. So
true. That's something we're going to talk about. We're definitely going to talk about that.
Oh, for sure. To get through some more examples, there's another one here for The Patriot, which I have not seen. There's a scene where Mel Gibson and Chris Cooper are walking and having a conversation, and the boom mic is above their heads, clearly in view the entire time they're having their conversation. I can imagine it's likely a wide shot. I did try to find footage of this. I wasn't really successful because all the sites I found while researching were kind of just describing it. Sometimes I got lucky doing research and there were actual scenes, so I didn't have to find the whole movie and or whatever might be on YouTube, because it's hard to say conversation in The Patriot. It's it's probably not a scene that sticks out otherwise.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't have time to watch every single movie all the way through that we talk about, especially if it's just a quick example. Movies like Madam Web, where we're going to dissect the entire movie, I definitely am going to have to sit down and watch. At the time of recording this, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm super excited. The next example of boom mic, is the last one on here, is in The Happening, which is an M. Night movie. Not my favorite M. Night movie. Definitely one of his misses. I do have ones I like. I know he's a I think probably the definition of a hit or miss filmmaker. He either makes really, really good movies or really, really bad movies. Usually they're not anywhere in between, unless you have one.
My personal taste is that his older films are better. I'm not a big fan of any of his new ones, but...
You know, I didn't mind Knock at the Cabin, but I read the book first, and the book is a lot better. But I will say, as a movie, in terms of his other ones, in more recent years, I don't hate it. But I do strongly recommend reading the book instead of watching the movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Trap yet, but I've heard it's not his best. I didn't like Old.
No, I was not a fan.
I haven't seen The Visit. I didn't like Glass.
Yeah.
I liked Split, but I understand the criticisms about it, like...
Yeah.
Glorifying mental health.
Yeah. It's
but I
a
thought...
bit problematic there.
Yeah. And you know what? One of my favorite movies is Signs.
I was going to say, that's what I mean. Like, I like the older ones. I just think they had more... it's just really good twists.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. They just got you.
He was still in his prime of, like, The Sixth Sense. Unbreakable's also really good. Signs is, again, my personal favorite. But in any case, The Happening with Marky Mark.
Yes.
Yes. Such a classic, talking to plants. Anyway, there's a microphone in it. So I have literally written in my notes, a part of me thinks it was intentional because apparently Shyamalan is going for that badly made B-movie vibe. But The Happening has a shot where there's a boom mic that drops into frame for a moment and you can't miss it. It comes so far down, it's noticeable. I'm pretty sure it's in the featured cast list, which is exactly what I wrote down in my notes, or what I pulled from Reddit. Who's to say if I paraphrased, but that might actually have been. I feel like
that's the movie that, like, there have been jokes about the whole boom mic. Like, other films have have poked fun at the whole boom mic coming really into frame, like in front of someone's face. Yeah, and I wonder if this movie might have been where people were pulling the joke from. Because it is kind of like, okay, how did you miss that? That's kind of, as we talked about before, it's like if it's just poking out just a little, just the tip at the top.
Just the tip. You heard it here.
Then it's like, okay, like it's easier to miss. But when it comes like really into frame, it makes you wonder, like, I guess they just had no more time to reshoot that.
Your disbelief is already so... suspended that, you know, Marky Mark talking to plants doesn't faze you. A boom mic dipping fully into a frame doesn't faze you either, I guess.
It's just some weird plant. It's just a bush that's
coming to life. I'm recording your audio.
It's not great.
No. When your movie is more remembered for a ridiculous scene of Marky Mark talking to a plastic plant, and a boom mic dipping into your frame than the actual plot or twist, especially for an M. Night movie.
Yeah.
Not the best on your roster. He's definitely made better movies.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you're going to watch The Happening, if anything, maybe just watch it for the mic. Mic drop.
The mic drop.
The boom drop. Sometimes that's funny. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to, I guess this one, most of the rest of the examples are crew members in frame. So I'm going to touch on this one really quick before we move on, because this one was actually circulating on Twitter recently.
Oh.
Yes, I'm going to call it Twitter.
Yeah.
So there's a clip in The Abyss where, and this is one where you can argue because no one really noticed it until now, I don't think. It almost kind of the way, so there's a crew member was sort of caught doing their job in the middle of some footage. So maybe they took some pre-roll or some post-roll from an actual scene to cut in. But these two actors, I've seen the movie, but it's been a while. The two actors in the scene are in like a really small enclosed space, and there's water and there's a lot going on. So you might not fully realize that there's an object that passes by the frame, like kind of in a wiping motion.
Yeah.
And it could just be debris. Like, it definitely fits with the environment. But if you look closely, it's a crew person with a camera wipe washing the lens.
Yep.
And I remember when I saw this, I don't really post on Twitter, but I doom scroll a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was scrolling and I saw this and I was like,
that can't be real.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, especially because I just started doing these outlines and I sent it to you when I found it and I was like, oh my God.
It's one of those that's like, you can't believe that would happen.
Because it's right in front of the lens, so it looks like it is a piece of blue cloth, but you can, like I said, argue that it's debris or something. But then when you really watch it, like, it is very like a human motion of like, and then it dips out of frame, and then they keep doing whatever they're doing. Like, no one's breaking, thankfully. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used it.
Yeah.
But it's just so crazy to me. And if I do cut in clips, which I haven't decided if I'm going to yet, cut in actual clips or just like still photos that we have in like our notes and stuff. Because who knows with copyright what I can get away with. But
well, I mean, as you said, you can go on Twitter and find it very easily.
You can go on Twitter and find it. I mean, people are recording entire movies out of theaters and putting them on Twitter now. I had the entire new Wolverine and Deadpool movie spoiled for me because of Twitter. So,
oh, great.
Yep. High-res footage of all the cameos.
Wow, that's
super great. Yeah, it shouldn't have to mute. I mean, you can argue all you want, like, well, if you don't want to get spoiled, don't go on social media, or block all the terms so you don't see any posts with those words in them. I know.
Yeah, that doesn't always work, though.
But it happens. I blame myself. I was hoping there'd be some I didn't know about. I was wrong. I saw them all.
Aww.
But my partner hadn't seen them all. Thankfully, he'd only seen one. And wasn't sure if it was even real.
Yeah.
It was, but
that's
I didn't
unfortunate.
until after.
That sucks.
But the
spoilers aren't fun.
Twitter's
That's why we really only
cesspool.
talk about... we really only talk about films that, for the most part, have been out for a while.
Yeah. I mean, the newest one we're talking about is probably Twisters, and that just came out on digital.
Yeah.
So, because I just saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
Like a couple weeks ago.
Well, what you said wasn't spoilery, so it's all good.
No, I maintain that I don't think it had anything to do with the movie. I think it was the theater itself.
Yeah.
But we'd have to watch it on digital to see if it's there, or I'd have to watch a different movie in that same theater and see if it's there. But who knows? They could have fixed it in between movies. If it was a theater problem, I'll never know.
Yeah.
All I know is it was distracting as hell.
Yeah.
And I kept noticing it. I kept looking for it later in the movie, and I'd be like, oh, maybe it wasn't there. And then I'd see it again. I'm like, it's there.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it was a theater issue. But,
yeah. It's just like, it's crazy when a crew member's just fully like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to mosey on in the... I mean, you have to, like, in between takes.
Sure.
You know, you're going to have your art department person run in, fix the scene. You're going to have, costume, makeup, fix everybody up. And then camera will also rub the lens, make sure there's no debris on it. And then sometimes you just have someone just in the scene.
Exactly.
Not doing anything. They're just there in the corner.
Which is the last few examples that we have. I don't know if you want to read some of these off. There's not
I was
too
going to
many.
mention the Pirates of the Caribbean one because it's really funny.
That one's pretty great.
I feel like it's notable because he's wearing like white and
he's wearing a cowboy hat. You're a pirate. Also, you're a crew member, but you're a pirate. Like, wearing a cowboy hat.
Yeah. Not the right outfit.
No, this one's The Curse of the Black Pearl, which I always forget. Is that the first one?
That is...
It is the first one.
It is the first one. Thank you, Jack.
Checks are like... Check for us.
I just have a better memory than you guys.
Fact check. Wow, if you have such a good memory, why aren't you up here?
But But yeah, it's just so funny to me that he's like got his sleeves all rolled up and he's got this bright white shirt on. And he's clearly, you can tell, like a lot of crew members who work on shoots, like big blockbuster productions, will dress like that. Like they will wear just a cowboy hat and just, you know, a tank top even. You're like, how's that appropriate? But they do.
How is a lot of things in this industry appropriate?
And it is a thing. I remember once I was on set and I was wearing, because I notably wear bright colors. I love funky patterns and outfits and stuff. Yes. This is actually more mild for my usual.
It is. It's more,
And yeah, I just remember once I was like wearing something really bright and colorful, and I actually had, I think he was like a second AD or whatever, and he was like, you shouldn't be wearing things as like this bright. Like they were like, you're not supposed to be wearing like really bright clothes as a crew member. And I'm like, well, why does it matter? I'm not on camera. And they're like, well, say you were accidentally or like you're off to the side or something, like it's going to be noticeable.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really thought about that. I'm like, yeah, I guess like as crew members, you probably should be wearing just in case.
Yep.
But I mean, if you're in a friggin' period piece, you can't exactly, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like anything you're wearing is probably going to stand out.
I mean, at least he was wearing a cowboy hat. I mean, maybe he would have been less noticeable if he was just wearing a white t-shirt.
Maybe.
But it's
very, very clean white t-shirt.
Yeah.
On a pirate ship.
Like Captain Jack, all like disheveled
dirty
in the foreground, and this like well-kept crew member with a white shirt and his cowboy hat. Fucking Glenn Powell from Twisters back in there.
Yeah, he does look like that,
just
doesn't he?
Gazing off into the distance, thinking he's out of frame.
Yeah, it's so funny. And it makes you wonder, too, like, what he was doing. Like, maybe he was just art department and he was helping, like, on the set and just didn't know they were shooting yet.
Honestly, that's probably why that was in there. Because it was probably pre-roll, and they're like, oh, we need a little bit more of the scene, and someone's not going to notice, so let's make it cut. You can see it in both the cameras. Just make it look intentional. No one's going to notice. Move on.
Yeah.
And, you know, a movie, again, I think we said this about some of the kid stuff we talked about last time with Prom Pact and stuff like that. Like, I guess parts of the character, it's more of an adult kids movie, but it's a kids movie.
Yeah.
No kid's really going to notice that. It's the adults who are picking up on the clean cowboy in the background.
Kids just going to be like, oh, it's another pirate with a cowboy hat. They're not checking the time period. They don't really care too much, but we do, and we notice those things.
Speaking of kids' movies, too, and we've already touched on a Harry Potter, so why not bring up the second one? Yes. In the Chamber of Secrets, I thought I was so funny with these notes. I said, I'm not sure that Hogwarts has an age cutoff for their students. I also highly doubt that they employ or enroll cameramen to film their duels. Because in the duel scene between Harry and Draco, you can see a cameraman hiding amongst all the students in one of the coverages of the scene. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
It's pretty bad.
About that.
I never really noticed it watching it. He blends in pretty well with the crowd, but it's not like, and I think to your point too, it's like thankfully he wasn't wearing like a construction vest or something like neon or super bright. He does kind of blend in, and I think he's probably wearing like a black t-shirt. Yeah. Or maybe they even gave him a robe just to like blend in or something. But he's definitely there. It's like an older guy holding the second camera to get the rest of the coverage just
and it's
in the shot.
It is a matter of like, you know, I think there was a time where people would say, oh, it's like, no one's going to notice. It's in the background. No one's going to notice. And, you know, people just didn't look for those things. We really do now.
Yeah.
And it's funny because something like that can be played off as, oh, it was just like, whatever. It was just another character in the movie. But, you know, especially when they have camera equipment, that's when you're going to notice.
Yeah. That one I would argue should be a little more jarring than the Pirates one because, I mean, the world of Harry Potter, you don't really see cameras, especially film cameers. Like, you could argue, again, that there could be someone in a clean white shirt on the boat for some reason.
The Pirates one, he's just far off in the corner enough that, like, you could justify it. We notice it, but you could justify. When someone is clearly holding camera equipment, you know that or they just don't fit into the, like, if they really don't fit in, it's like, it's jarring. And I do find that with the Pirates one, but they're
both jarring in different ways, but they both logistically don't make sense in different ways. I will say with the Harry Potter one too, and again, spoiler-ish for a future episode where we talk about stunt doubles and body doubles, and when they are or aren't noticed on camera. Notoriously, when Friends did their reformatting, they dropped the 4x3. There's a lot more you can see in the peripherals. We'll get back into that in a future episode. However, I wonder if that's a little bit the case with the Harry Potter option.
They did that with the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, because I remember I used to be a full screen kid. I was like, I don't want to see widescreen. The bars are distracting.
Yeah.
And little did I know, like, because they were filmed for wider, or they had the extra space to do the widescreen, and so you would end up seeing more than you did in the full screen.
I think the first movie, because I didn't watch it in theaters, so I just had, like, the VHS.
Yeah.
And, it was just...
That was back when the VHS would say it was full screen or widescreen.
Yeah, I just had the 4x3, and I would watch it on my little, like, old TV. And so it was just different framing. You weren't, whoever was shooting it, they were cropping in. They didn't expect.
They were shooting it for 4x3.
Yeah.
And so they weren't thinking about how film could advance, at least not in the early 2000s or even before that in the 90s, like Friends. You weren't really thinking about all that extra space. You were thinking for where you're going to shoot for. And even now people will do that. They'll shoot to be able to punch in so that you can get even more coverage from a wider angle. You can have much more flexibility with the quality options to punch in, zoom out, zoom in, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think my internet algorithm is picking up on me doing research for all this stuff, because this one I saw from a reel on Instagram.
Oh.
And so I think it realized, like, oh, you've been looking at continuity stuff and movie mistakes. Here you go. I'll ruin your childhood, because that's what we're aiming to do, is ruin movies for people.
Ruin movies for people. Should that be our opening?
It can be our new opening. I still say
we ruin movies for people.
We'll move on to Gremlins. This one is a little bit more hidden, but again, if you're looking for it, you'll see it. There's a scene when one of the gremlins attacks the mom from behind a Christmas tree. And the tree falls on top of her. But if you look closely, you can see a crew member with glasses and a red shirt hugging the tree and pushing it forward.
Yeah.
Which, it's Christmas. I'm sure he thought, like, it's not a bright red shirt. It definitely blends in with, like, the art department. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
Red and green. Maybe you should have been wearing a green shirt.
I mean, green would have probably blended in a little bit better, but...
Probably. But, you know what? Some people say Gremlins, this is a whole other thing, but I have to say this. Gremlins is a Christmas movie. I don't care who says it's not. I've heard so many people online say Gremlins is not a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I think I've watched it more around Christmas
I always watch it around Halloween. Christmas. That's another one I have on VHS. But it's another one like Nightmare Before Christmas, I was supposed to say, on Elm Street. That's a Halloween movie for sure.
Yes.
Where you can watch it at Christmas or Halloween. Gremlins is kind of another one of those. You can watch it. I more tend to watch it around Christmas, but you could also watch it around Halloween.
Yeah.
In any case, you know what? Because if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Gremlins is a Christmas movie, and vice versa, okay? It takes place on and around Christmas.
The endless debate of whether it's a Christmas movie or not.
Like, I was just telling my partner, because I've been playing the 4th Fallout game. I love the game, but I also love that the explosion happened on or around Halloween. So to me, it just adds, and there's all the ghouls everywhere. I was like, this feels like a very Halloween game. I don't know if it's the same caliber of holiday classification that people would put Die Hard and Gremlins into. But I like thinking it's a Halloween game, even though I'm playing it all year and currently. But Gremlins is a funny one because I feel like it's for the mechanics of the scene. So it's not even just like...
it was probably... They had to have the tree push over, but then they also safely needed to do it. So they needed some kind of spotting done. And a crew member is just basically being that spotting to make sure it doesn't actually like fully fall on her.
Yeah, you don't want to harm any of the actors. You don't want to, because I'm pretty sure all the gremlins were practical. They're like puppets and stuff. They only have so many of them. So you don't want to ruin any of the props. You don't want to hurt any of the actors. You certainly don't want to hurt the crew either. But I mean, I feel like they could have rigged something, you know?
Yeah.
Like he could have been holding like some kind of cable, something to sort of control the motion, like a pulley
Definitely
system.
how you'd think it would go. And considering a lot of money was probably put into the gremlins themselves, you would think they would be able to do that. But a lot of those older, like, I guess it's like, what, 80s movies?
80s, yeah.
A lot of the, like, practical stunts and just action things that would happen, like, were done by just a crew member, like...
Yeah.
Like moving something or like, you know.
It's great. I mean, I think that's best most of the time, especially when it comes to things like the gremlins, like I said, that are, I'm pretty sure, puppets. Like I worked on a
like
Halloween movie recently where it's as practical as they could possibly get it. Like the big pumpkins that are used. I don't know how much I can talk about because the movie's not out yet. Probably won't be by the time this podcast is released, maybe. But to vaguely talk about it, there's this pumpkin, and there's varying degrees of that puppet that were created so that they could use it in various states of decay or movement. But as much of it as possible that they could make practical, they did, and it looks better. I mean, sometimes CGI can add, but practical always feels better.
Yeah, I'm just an old, like, I love in old movies when everything was practical. You had practical gore, you had practical, like, you know, creature work, and it had a cheese level to it, but there's something so fun and, like, I don't know. It's just movie magic. I love practical stuff. And, you know, there is a lot more CGI used today. And it's interesting because now they're starting to kind of go back on that. And they're doing a lot more practical again. And then they'll just kind of add CGI to that to kind of...
Which, honestly, I think kind of looks the best is when you have a hybrid. Because then you're not using the CG as a crutch, and you don't only have the practical to get your vision across. But, I mean, you know, in this case, it was a practical Christmas tree, and they could have just not had the crew guy back there pushing. I get for the need for a control. It was a quite big tree from what I remember. So I guess they needed a certain degree of, like, you know, counterbalance or something. But again, they could have done a pulley system. He could have been behind a curtain.
Yeah,
something.
They could have rigged that up a little bit better for sure.
It's, again, it's in a scene with so much chaos going on. So I think for a long time, it probably went very unnoticed.
Yeah, they probably just... And if anyone noticed, they let it go because it was like, you know... Good old-fashioned movie making.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Who's going to say anything?
Well, now we do.
We're going to say something.
That's what we've been saying.
Yep.
Old movies they just have a charm to them. And you can forgive, like, a lot more production mistakes or, you know, and especially, like, post mistakes. Because I feel like we've come such a long way and you can do so much. So, like, an older movie, you're like, yeah, you know, it was the time. Like,
especially
fine.
something like, you know, Wizard of Oz, like that era, too. You're like, yeah, her hair is a little longer every other shot, but... Look at this whole sepia to color transition thing that they thought of filming. I think I'll give them the hair discrepancy.
Exactly. Go look at this more amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah. So basically, I mean, I guess we can go through and give our offenses if we want.
Yeah. This one, I think because there were so many examples, we should probably do it by category instead of by individual example. So that'll be continuity, equipment, and... crew, I guess, will be the three that we'll break down.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So we'll start with continuity. What do you think?
So, me working on set and, like, seeing both sides of it and, like, understanding how those mistakes can get made, because I've done them myself. I do have quite an understanding for that. However... because I also look for it a lot, because I was a set dresser, because I worked with props, it's like, it's something I notice so much. And I can't help but notice because I'm looking out for it. So for me, it's a higher offense, and especially in a big film.
Yes.
I would say I am more forgiving of it when it happens in TV because it's
30
like,
Rock.
yeah, it's like, it's a
Let the
comedy
Crinkle
show.
book be a giraffe. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's not the point of the conversation.
It's fine. It's fine. But I think if it's a big film, it does bother me. And it is something that I think, they can look out for. And I think when you're shooting, you can look out for and try to not have happen. However, I do also understand that if someone read a line a certain way that was just so good, and even though the continuity was not great on that scene, you're like, oh, but I'm going to take, the amazing performance of the actor over the continuity.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one to judge. I would say I'm like,
We were doing conditionals, so.
I know. I think I'm like maybe like level 2.
Really?
Yeah. I think I'm in the middle because it's like, I can see both sides of it. I can see how it can happen and how I can understand it, but also like understand why someone would even see that error, but still choose to go with something because of the performance.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think I'm going to give it a 3, and I'm only going to up it because I do agree it could be either or even just like somewhere in the middle of a 2 or 3, but I'm going to lean more towards a 3 only because when I tell people what I used to do for a living, when I say I would do QC work, they go, oh, continuity.
It is.
Because it's
true.
the one thing
it is a big one.
that everyone talks about the Pretty Woman thing. Everyone talks about hair being different lengths. Everyone notices that because it's such a quick thing to notice in a scene that can take you right out of it. And especially if it's something like someone's haircut changing in the middle of a scene or a mustache being there and then suddenly not there and looking really weird because you're like, something was removed, but I don't know what it was.
You make a good point.
It is what people think is the only thing that we would do. And I would have to say, no, it's a little bit more than that. Like, yes, sometimes it is that kind of thing. So I would argue it's probably the most common QC error that most people will notice.
I do agree with you on that. And I think, your like explanation of it, like I might be raising mine a little more now.
We're both at a 3.
2.5.
Yeah, we can do a 2.5.
Because I agree with you. It is something that even someone who doesn't know anything about the world of film can still point out and can still notice. And like, that says a lot. That says that that's something someone does see and notice and can take them out of a scene. And so, it should be a higher offense because, you want to be listening to Julia Roberts have her, amazing conversation, not that she's suddenly eating a croissant and then it's a pancake. You just
Exactly.
You need to be able to be in that scene.
I'm more curious why she's just raw dogging a pancake. Why don't you have it on a plate with some syrup and some butter or something? Why are you just like...
Who eats a pancake?
Because her hand surely would have like syrup on it. She's just like, who eats a dry pancake? That's my question.
It was a dry pancake. That's a
level 3 offense.
That is a level 3 offense.
Dry pancakes.
Yeah, we're just going to give Pretty Woman the level 3. They get the level 3 by themselves.
For the dry pancake alone. Not even the continuity.
Yeah. Just Julia Roberts for that dry pancake.
How dare she? I guess the next one will be equipment in frame. I will give that one a 2.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I feel like the examples, even that we talked about, it's like, it happens and it depends on how much you notice it. I feel like if it's predominantly like, the boom mic really, really being in frame, then yeah, sure. If it's like, someone in the reflection of a car and you see the crew
such a quick shot.
Yeah,
you
see the camera for a quick second. It's like,
that's something you notice if you like a Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or huge franchise or just like something with a big fan base that people are likely to watch I don't want to say obsessively,
Yeah.
but like on repeat a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to really know a movie, because I know personally when I rewatch movies, sometimes I'm like, okay, I know what they're talking about. What's over here? Did I miss something? And then I look more at other parts of the frame. Maybe that's just me. So if it's a movie I really, really like, I'm personally more likely to like
exactly
pick up on something on repeat views I didn't notice before.
And I think in the comparison of like continuity and then something like not crew, but the equipment being in frame, it's like, you know, people are focusing so much on the actors and the performance because that's what you're watching the movie for.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily, unless you're people like us who understand film, would be thinking, where is the camera? Where is the microphone? Like, those are things that the average person is not going to be just looking out for when they're watching like a really beautiful drama.
Yeah.
And it's, so I think you're right. I think it's not as worrisome because if it is there, people are probably likely not noticing it as much as something that maybe the actor is working with or a prop.
It's not something that's as interactive. It's if you notice it, you notice it. And I kind of feel the same way. I kind of feel the same way about crew members. I think I put it in the same category. I think it's a 2 for me as well. Just because, you know, especially with like the Harry Potter one, you can argue like, okay, probably the original way they filmed it, the person wasn't in the frame. So initially they weren't there. And then for Pirates of the Caribbean, like, you know, they thought cowboy, it's close enough to a pirate. That one I would maybe put more of a level 3 because although he's a cowboy, he's also so much cleaner than everybody else around him.
He stuck out like a sore thumb, so it's a bit.
And again, with Gremlins, it's like that's a Christmas classic, so you can kind of put it up there with stuff Christmas classic. You can kind of put it up there with stuff like a franchise that people are really going to have a huge fan base around, where you will have repeat viewings because, like me, I watch it every year. So, like, I didn't notice this while watching it, but maybe I would on the next viewing this year around Christmas because I'm looking at another part of the frame and suddenly I'm like, wait, what was that? Because it's happened with a couple other movies we're going to talk about in other episodes. Like, there's a big example of that in one of the Scream movies. I left it out of this breakdown because I have a whole episode about the franchise.
A whole episode on Scream.
Yes.
Just the whole
franchise. Except the third one isn't a part of another episode. It'll make sense when we film it, I swear. But there was a huge example in that one. That one I did notice on rewatching it, and I love those movies. So I noticed that one on like a very much a repeat view, and I was like, whoa, I never realized that was there. It didn't it kind of took me out of it, but I also knew what came right before it and what was coming next after it because I'd seen it so many times. So
you were looking out.
Yeah, I was looking for it. But I think that equipment and crew are a level 2. That ramps.
I think level 2 as well. I think if it's prolonged, like that microphone in frame for a really long time and coming down really far, then a little higher, closer to 3 for me. But but it all depends on how noticeable it is, and I think generally camera equipment, microphone equipment is usually like dark color. You don't tend to like notice it like right away.
No, it's meant to blend in. Otherwise, they would put a big like neon sign on it or something.
And then I think like crew, if they're blended in a little more, then it's fine. But if they're sticking out like a sore thumb, then it might be a little bit higher for me. But because it's also definitely something that you think of it as like an actor, and it's like, oh, who the heck is that? That's not a regular pirate. That's So I think it depends. If they're sticking out really poorly, then I think it's higher for me. Then it'd be closer to a 3. But I think we're pretty much about agreeing on the same thing.
I think so.
Levels.
We're on the same page. I persuaded you, so now we're on the same page. You persuaded
me on the first one, for sure. Because I agree. It's true. It's
the one thing I would get it all the time. Oh, you do QC? So like continuity. That's like always what people would say.
That's true. Yeah, that's the only thing they know about quality control. Yeah. There's so much more to it. More.
That's why we started this podcast.
There's so many things to look out for. And, a lot of them, some people notice and some don't. But that's why we're going to tell you about them.
Because either we'll notice them or we'll research to see what other people noticed.
Yes. Because, there are a lot that we might not notice. But it is fun to look out for them. And maybe you guys can find some that we haven't seen as well. And
Yeah, and I think like we said last time, movies and TV are going to keep coming out. So there's going to always be stuff to watch for. So more content to be had and more fun for us to have watching movies and TV.
yeah.
And thankfully our partners are on the same page, so we're all looking for it.
Jack. Our sound recordist.
Yes.
We hope you like pointing out mistakes like we do, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Find your own mistakes, and sorry if we ruined some movies for you, but maybe we'll start putting a disclaimer at the beginning of these episodes. Sorry, you might start to see everything you watch with a critical eye now.
Sorry, you'll start to notice things that you don't want to. Sorry.
Quality Control Chicks podcast is produced and co-hosted by Lisa Cumming and Janae Perez. Audio record, mix, and master by Jack Rudy. For clips, updates, and more, you can follow our Instagram at Quality Control Chicks Pod. You can also find us on Spotify or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.